Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you everyone for joining today for our webinar. We've been away a month, so it's alhamdulillah, it's good to be back, and inshallah today we've got a very important topic, and it is something that a lot of us, I know, we've been discussing to address this issue for a while. So I'm very happy that we are able to do this today. And we've got, we're very lucky to have the Ustadh with us for this. But before we do that, I'm just going to share a brief presentation on strong support in the sense of where we are, and yes, so share that. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi tayyibin at-tahirin. Thank you everyone for joining us for this. I just want to give some people who may be coming to this webinar and not familiar with strong support. So strong support was set up in October, so coming to our kind of 2-year anniversary, if you like, and alhamdulillah, since we've started, we've interacted with about 300 individual Muslims who have contacted us for help. This is an international audience of Muslims, and we are volunteer-based. So everybody that is working is working on a volunteer-based capacity with us. And we're here for people to have a safe place where they can discuss their attractions, their concerns. What distinguishes us from perhaps other organizations is that we don't believe in a label. We don't believe in a label in terms of a sexual identity. So even straight, for example, we won't say that that is an identity. If you were to identify ourselves, we look towards taqwa, or we look towards God centricity as the aim in our mission, in what we're doing. And we recognize that people come from different stages, different areas of life, and that everybody has their own unique journey of finding what taqwa means to them, what God centricity actually means for them, and how they can practically apply this. So, you know, much to the brother who's with us, we've heard pornography is haram, but okay, what practical things can we do? You know, just saying that it's haram isn't a sufficient answer for what at least our audience is experiencing. So we take a practical approach in understanding our emotions, understanding our desires, and seeing what that really means for us. So in terms of the projects that we offer, we have a 30-minute free consultation, and you can go on the website. You can go to strongsupport.co.uk/contact. You can fill in that free form, and we speak to everyone who fills in that form, wherever they might be. We've had not only people who are struggling, we've also had parents, for example, or family members who have been affected by this. Again, the consultation is quite wide in its approach, that we've had a number of people who've used that service. Alhamdulillah, for now, 2 years and running, we're having a halakha or support circle, which is online for men and women who struggle with same-sex lust. This year, we also started our Arabic circle because there was a very big group of people needing support in Arabic. So we've started that. And actually, only just last week, we've started our parent circle, in that we recognize that there might be parents of people who are struggling with this, and the parents need as much support really as the children do in that respect. And there's a different angle, or even parents who are maybe concerned that their child may be experiencing or inhibiting these things, and what they can do to help. So inshallah. So one of the things that is quite current at the moment is the UK at the moment is doing a consultation, and our last webinar was addressed upon this in terms of recognizing what rights are and what rights we have as a Muslim living in the UK, and getting support which is aligned with our faith and values. So the government has given a consultation period in terms of what they define as conversion therapy, and they've taken a good view at it, because the basis of it is coercion. So for example, if you're doing anything coercively, if you're telling someone that they should reach at a particular outcome, or you're expecting something, and that's the key thing. And one of the things I'd like to add on this is the other therapy, which is gay affirmative therapy, is also coercive if it expects you to take on that identity, or it says you must or you should take on an identity. So again, we champion self-determination. We champion that the individual themselves decides how they identify, what they do. And we would not, or even in our services, we won't be telling people what to be doing or what to be saying. So I think it's important. Now, the thing which is concerning is for under 18s, they have not allowed, so they're saying for under 18s, they would not have the capacity to make that decision. So basically that means we're discussing pornography, for example, at the moment. So if an under 18 watched pornography and they were questioning their sexuality and they wanted some support to affirm what was happening, or in exploring what might be happening, then they may be subject to, it may be that you might be LGBT, and that's okay. And I think we need to be very careful in saying that, okay, can we have an explorative therapy which doesn't have a bias towards one sexuality or the other, and lets the child decide what type of therapy it is, instead of coercing a narrative. And similarly in gender identity, if they're prescribing puberty blockers, or they're prescribing a certain narrative, then it's important that we fight that, and we fight for our right for freedom of belief, freedom of religion. So if you haven't already, we have published a guidance on what to say to the government. It is really important that you do take the time. It takes 5 or 10 minutes to fill this in. So I do encourage everybody who is watching, if you haven't already, please take 5-10 minutes of your time. Tell the government, for the sake of our children, what we think in these terms and so on. So you can find that, you can go to our website, you can or Google strong support therapy ban, or even the consultation, which is on the government website. You can go and you can, inshallah, respond. So inshallah, now I'd like to go to the intent of the webinar. And as normal with our sessions, before we start, I'd like to, inshallah, look at some verses of the Quran before we start. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And I've chosen some of the, we've had these in our groups where we've looked at the verses and what they mean to us. And the first set is one which I'd like to discuss, is to do with our eyes, to see with what we're seeing. So this first verse is from chapter 41, verse 22. And we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying on that day, he's talking about Yawm al-Qiyamah, and on that day you'll be unable to hide yourselves. So وَمَا كُنْتُمْ تَسْتَرُونَ, you'll be unable to hide on that day, in which your sama'kum, your hearing, absarakum, your sight, and even your skin. It's interesting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says skin. What haram am I doing in terms of my skin? You know, what am I interacting in a harmful way? And all of these things will testify against you. And zanantum, you thought, you assumed, in Allahu la ya'lamu kasiran mimma ta'lamun, and you thought God doesn't really know what you're up to, you know, or what you are doing. So that's the first verse in that. And we know on Yawm al-Qiyamah that our eyesight, our hearing, our skin will testify for what we have been doing in this life. The other verse is quite a famous verse in Surah chapter 20. وَلَا تَمَدَّيْنَ عَيْنِكَ عَلَى مَا مَتَّعْنَا بِهِ أَزْوَاجَهُم مِّنْهُمْ زَهْرَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا لِنَفْتِنَهُمْ فِيهِ. So, and don't extend or don't push your eyes over that which we have made some categories or some classes for them to enjoy. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying some people will be enjoying some of these activities. And he calls it in this sense, Zahrat al-Hayat al-Dunya. And that could mean a lot of things. There's a splendor in this earthly life for a lot of things. But Allah says through that we're testing them. It isn't something that it's benefiting them. It's something that they're being tested by. وَرِزْقُ رَبِّكَ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. And the sustenance which is from your Lord, and sustenance can mean different things, you know, it can, if you're married, it can mean your spouse, if you're under your category of, if you're still under your parents, it could be the risk that your parents, the tarbiyah they're providing you. So I think it's again an interesting reflection, and again in terms of the eyes and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about, our sight in this. Then a few verses here about fahisha and the concept of fahisha, for example, in the Quran. The first verse from chapter 7, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Qul innama harama, indeed my Lord has forbidden obscenities, al-fawahish, ma zahara minha wa ma batin. So the ones which are apparent and the ones which are hidden. So there might be things that we were doing openly, and there'll be things that we'll be doing secretly, for example. Similarly, in chapter 6, verse 151, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, "Wala takrabu," don't even go near it, right? And Islam is like that. Islam is preventative because it knows Allah's our creator. He knows what the power of the fawahish and how that can be a strong, powerful thing. It says, another famous verse, "Wala taqrabu zina," for example, don't even go near that thing. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeats the same where he says what is apparent and what is concealed from that when we're engaging with fawahish. And then in chapter 24, again, chapter where it talks about the hijab of the eyes and so on, we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about those who love inna lazina yuhibbuna, that the fahisha is spread across the deen. It's across the fid-deen amanu, among the believers. So we see a group who are saying there's nothing wrong with it. Spread it, it's fine, it's natural. There's nothing wrong in having this. So again, it's understanding the Quranic language of these things and understanding how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has framed that for us in the Quran, inshallah. So I'm very happy to have Ustadh Abu Musa, who is the co-founder of My Tazkiyah. And I do encourage you to look into their website. They have a program, a monthly program, which is very cheap. It's only £20 per month. People say £20. I'm like, you need to invest. You watch Netflix. Netflix takes £10, or people like go to you go shopping. You buy something, £20, nothing, and when you're actually struggling with something, people find it very difficult to sign on. And alhamdulillah, there's a community which is there, people who are in the same boat. There's an anonymity to that. So, a lot of people find it difficult to get help. So alhamdulillah, there's an anonymity. There's weekly calls, there's worksheets and ebooks, and and again, there's no commitment to it. So I think it's a really, really good thing. And as well as for me, I know there's a lot of content on YouTube. We had Ustadh Gabriel Romani with us a few sessions back, and he's very active in My Tazkiyah as well. So it's really good to see. And on social media like Facebook, you can see really, really good, relevant articles on, and we entitled this webinar, I was speaking to the Ustadh and I was thinking how, and I was thinking, you know what, it's a struggle, and it's for all of us. There isn't anyone here you can say, oh, it's not a struggle to what it is. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome the Ustadh Abu Musa. Thank you so much for taking time today to be with us.
Jazakallah khair akhi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. Akhi, may Allah accept your efforts. You guys are doing great work, alhamdulillah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your work. And very grateful to be here on the webinar with you, alhamdulillah. So as we discussed, we want to talk about more about pornography addiction amongst Muslim community. And so inshallah, I'll start. I'm going to briefly just go over the problem and solution and some practical steps maybe people can take to help them get out of this whole and recover, inshallah. So addiction. Yeah, what is addiction? Addiction, in other words, is escapism, right? And so addiction is fueled by the need for escapism. And escapism is fueled by an inner conflict. So that's how I put it into an equation. The equation of addiction is inner conflict plus escapism equals addiction. Yes. And that inner conflict is where it all boils down to that inner conflict. Yeah, that inner struggle, that inner war that individual have. So a lot of people we deal with, you would see that they have this inner war going on, that struggle, that inner conflict, that turmoil within. And this could vary, right? It could be various different things, which include general mental health issues, anxiety, depression, stress, PTSD, trauma, their conditioning, how they view the world, how they react to the world, and their kind of behavioral patterns and so on. And this is what needs to be solved in order to recover. Yeah, because if there's an inner conflict and then the person finds a form of escapism, a person's going to use that escapism to escape from that inner conflict. And you do it so many times, it eventually will become an addiction. And that's how porn addiction forms. And it's described as an online crack cocaine now by scientists and so on, seeing the different experiments they've done. I'm sure a lot of the viewers know about the effects, the extreme dopamine release, a very abnormal dopamine release that pornography has. Yeah, it's not built for the human brain. So going back to the inner conflict, what I wanted to touch on is that basically I describe this problem as an iceberg. Yeah, so you have the tip of the iceberg, which is visible, is on a conscious level, and then you have the much larger part of the iceberg beneath the waters, and that's where the problem lies. So now the tip of the iceberg is the acting out, the pornography, the masturbation, the same sex lust, or whatever it may be. But the issues are underneath. You see, that's the acting in. We've seen that that's not the major problem. From my experience, that is not the major problem. The real problem is going beneath the waters and seeing what is driving that. How did it form? What happened in childhood? What happened in teenage years? What kind of conditioning a person developed? And that is what needs to be disrupted. You need to kind of break it open. It's like an electrical circuit. And right now, it's wired in such a way that it's firing up this lifestyle, this addiction lifestyle. So it needs to be cut and interrupted and disrupted and rewired with a new circuit based on sobriety, based on a recovery lifestyle.
I mean, what we see is even in our work that a lot of people go to this because they have a legitimate need for connection, or they'll have a halal need, but the way that as you say, they're wired up, they are meeting that halal need in a haram way. So the need itself is halal. It's something that they need, but the approach of it is harmful for them.
Yeah. It's a natural desire, and obviously if you go back to the history of Islam, we were encouraged to marry young. And now, subhanAllah, it's become a norm to get married in your 30s, having kids in your 40s, which is not normal. Even if you look back to non-Muslim societies, just the last century, if we're talking about. And that's something that as a community, I think even, things like these, little podcasts like these and our organizations, alhamdulillah, people are getting more comfortable talking about this, speaking about this. And only then will the parents and the communities and the older generation realize how much of a problem this is, what the youth are actually going through. And then they can maybe be a bit easier, make the halal easier and the haram difficult. Right now, I talk to youth, some of them tell me that their parents have that mindset that you just go university and get a good job, whatever, and kind of like under the table, they'll say, zina, okay, do that. But I want you in society, I want you to be a certain way. And, you know, you can't get married until you're established and this and that. So that's a very messed up mindset, you know, subhanAllah. And with regards to addiction, so a lot of people don't even realize what's going on. You know, they'll mention things like, I just ended up on the screen out of nowhere, didn't realize what happened. I'm watching pornography. I'm at the the escorts place, or whatever, you know, unwanted behavior they're struggling with. So that's why there's always a process, and we need to backtrack and see what's going on. And this is why it's very important for anyone suffering from this to reach out, to join a support group, to get help. Even if that's, you can even go to NHS, your local doctor, through your GP, get referred to maybe a psychologist, or you can get involved with something like talking therapies, where they can refer you to do a bit of CBT work, cognitive behavioral therapy. But the benefits with a Muslim organization is that a non-Muslim coach or counselor or therapist will not understand what we go through, you know, the culture, the religion, and so on, the aspect of the deen. But you can still, obviously, you need to get help and reach out. And you know, just before I kind of go to the solution, I just wanted to mention a quote. It goes something like this: that watch your thoughts, for your thoughts become your intentions. Watch your intentions, for they become your behavior. Watch your behavior, for that becomes your character. And watch your character, watch your character, for that becomes your destiny. So if we just leave the rest of it and just focus on the thoughts becoming the intention, I think that's where the problem lies. Yes, because once an intention is formed in your mind, it's very hard to come back from that. Once an emotion, a lustful urge has come into place, it's very hard to go back from that. So you have to go to the thoughts. And, you know, even if you were to talk about the physiology of the brain, the parts like amygdala and prefrontal cortex, this is where a lot of thoughts convert into emotions. This is where a lot of our conditioning, our behavioral patterns are. Yeah. So what we have to watch for is go back to the root, like you've mentioned, subhanAllah, in the verse of the Quran, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, do not go near zina. And that's something we try to teach. We have this thing where we say zero tolerance approach. You need to maintain this zero tolerance approach. And this is a surface level tool that you can use. Obviously, there needs to be deeper work done. But this is, you, in recovery, you're going to develop this spiritual toolbox. So on a surface level, the zero tolerance approach, because I had a brother, he was about a year sober, and he mentioned 90% of my recovery has been this zero tolerance approach. And there's three parts to it: zero tolerance to second thoughts, zero tolerance to second looks, and zero tolerance to second clicks. So that's kind of the pattern. Yeah, the thought process, the lowering the gaze, and then going to the clicks, the most dangerous part, where people end up now watching pornography, acting out, and so on. But if we were to go back to the thought process, you have to guard your mind. This is the problem. The addiction lives in the brain, and the brain is a very complex organ. And this addiction has developed over years and decades. For some, several decades of hard wiring is in there. It's been embedded in there. So what you focus on with any coaching, counseling, you will focus on the brain. Yeah, your patterns, your thinking patterns, what's going on in there. But if you just take this as, you know, something, a practical step you could take, this zero tolerance approach, and we're taught this a lot by through the deen as well, through, you know, scholars, Islamic lectures, and so on, to lower our gaze. Because when you lower a gaze, there's this scholar that mentioned, you know, the pleasure in not looking is greater than the pleasure in looking. If you look now, for instance, men, women, we walk out and we look at the opposite sex, what are we going to get out of it? Yeah, not much. Yeah, obviously at first look, accidental looks, so they don't matter. But that second look is where choice comes in. And that's where you start working on recovery, you start surrendering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's where you basically start developing that zero tolerance approach. Because if you take that second look, that third look at that individual, and lust after them and objectify them, they could be in your mind as a memory for the rest of your life. But if you didn't take that second look, that's the end of it. See, so this is how the zero tolerance approach needs to be implemented. And, as we're counseled by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, that this idea where you don't let things build, because that thought, when the first thought comes, and I'm going to talk about some other recovery tools that individuals can use, but you start taking action on those recovery tools. You surrender, you call someone, you call another member, you get out of your porn environment, you leave your house, you go to the masjid for 15 minutes, you go for a cruise on a motorway, all these different tools. Yeah, you go to the gym, you go for a boxing session, whatever it is. You don't go on that chain, that train of relapse, because that first thought, if you engage in the second thought, then it becomes the third and the fourth, and then it becomes a moving picture and a video. And what's happening there is, that second thought is releasing a bit of dopamine and it's triggering those addictive pathways. Then the third and the fourth and the video, then the mental masturbation is taking place. And you've triggered that pathway. So then, that thought is turning into emotion. And no emotion can come into existence without a thought process taking place. No feeling emotion can happen. No acting out, no act of lust can happen without that thought process taking place. Yes. So these few things I wanted to just mention. And
so in terms of addiction, how, a lot of people might be watching this and they might be occasional, they might watch porn occasionally, and then they feel bad about it, and then they'd go back and then they do istighfar and so on. And there might be people who are thinking, they might be anxious about that, and they might think that they're addicted to it, So how would you differentiate between someone who was, say, because we don't have an early marriage concept, unfortunately, in our communities, and then people, when they are having the sexual desire, they act out, and then they act out with, but it may not be something that they do every day, for example, it might be something that they're tempted at. And obviously they need support and guidance as well. But I guess someone who is addicted to it would need probably a more intrusive, kind of pattern where they need to. So how would you, because at some level we are all kind of like, and the materials everywhere. So even if you're on social media and you're browsing and you're not even looking for it, it's there. So yeah, I wanted to see how you would distinguish between an addiction and and just something that you may be you put your desires, or the desire has come in a way and you don't know how to satisfy that desire.
Yeah. I think a lot of people that come to us, or like an addict, will kind of know he's addicted. If it's something that you can't stop and it's become a problem, because you're right. Some people may have watched it, once or twice, and sometimes you see comments, on the forums or YouTube videos that I watched it and I never watched it again. SubhanAllah, it's been 10 years now. Obviously, that person is not an addict. And some people, it may have been a bit of a problem, but they got married and the problem goes away. There are some tests online, I think, that you can kind of figure out if you're suffering from sexual addiction. For people who want to identify that, whether they're in addiction or not. But I feel like the people who reach out, because this is a very hard topic to, it's very hard to reach out. And that's the thing that we face a lot. People find it very hard to reach out. So I think people who have a problem and they know that it's an issue and, is affecting their life, it's destroying them slowly but surely. And I think beyond that, educating as well. So even because it's such a known as such an extreme mood enhancement substance now compared to heroin. SubhanAllah, like the tests were done on someone watching pornography and someone taking heroin, and similar effects seen in the brain. So, SubhanAllah, and brain scans done, seen there's damage being seen. And again, me directly dealing with many individuals, that the effect that it has, seeing the world through, this kind of sexual filter, objectifying everyone, whether it's at school, college, university. So it's now really affecting them. It's going beyond something that they've just seen on the computer. But I think that's something that time will tell. But what I was trying to say is that because it's compared to hard drugs, even if you think that it's not an addiction, you have to be very careful. Like, obviously the deen again tells us, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. This is very damaging, a very harmful thing. And online, you can see anything and everything. And another thing is tolerance. And when you talk about tolerance, everyone mentions that they may have started off watching. SubhanAllah, you mentioned that things pop up. I bought this Mac that I'm basically doing, this on now. And my wife uses it more than me. And SubhanAllah, she'll watch these series and that. And lately, I've been getting some, images popping up, very kind of, SubhanAllah, lustful images. And I was shocked because I thought, there's some powerful computers that they will protect it and so on. And that's just her trying to watch some series going on some websites. And you would see this, that sometimes you go on movie websites or these kind of things, and things that a lot of the youth will go onto, and you're seeing these explicit pictures that for them, like they've never come across this. And on that note, I always, whenever I do some kind of presentation, webinar, or something, I always try to encourage that as parents, we need to be very proactive, because this industry is very proactive. It is a billion dollar industry, the porn industry. So anyone watching now, if you're a parent or even an older brother, a sister, you have individuals, if you're worried about yourself or youngsters in the house, then you need to get an application called Custodio. And there's a few. There's Covenant Eyes. There's also there's a few applications, but I use Custodio in my house, and there's a parent version of the app. So the parent will install that, and then there's a kids version of the app. You install it onto all the kids' devices, and even your own devices, because sometimes your kids will use your devices as well. And inshallah, we can take those steps to protect them from this harm. Just innocent minds seeing these vivid pictures online or videos or whatever. And it's something we need to really work on as a community. I think every household should have filters in place to protect the children, and it's really good. Custodio is really good. So it's Custodio, Custodio, and you can filter everything. So it will tell you what they've been watching on YouTube, I believe, website, their location, and you can even limit data. You can put time restrictions, and I think you can add up to 5 people, and it's free. And even beyond that, it's paid. I mean, this should be nothing for us to protect the fitrah of our children. It's like sadaqah, right? As you were talking about the other stuff. But yeah, so inshallah, if I is it okay if I just touch on the solution and
absolutely.
Yeah. So as I was mentioning, it's very important to reach out. This problem on your own is going to be very difficult. It's rare that we've seen people recover on their own, because on your own, it's you, it's your qareen. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that every one of us has been assigned a qareen. Yes. And we're told in the Quran, الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ مِنَ الْجِنَّةِ وَالنَّاسِ. Those who whisper in the hearts of وَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ, in the hearts of men, مِنَ الْجِنَّةِ وَالنَّاسِ, from amongst the jinn and the mankind. Subhanallah. So we have the qareen, and we're told that in a narration that the devil flows in our body like blood flows through our veins. SubhanAllah. So this is another thing. People get really affected by unwanted thoughts. I'm getting these thoughts, I'm sexualizing individuals, objectifying people, but I tell them that that's not you. Remember, that's not even you. Why are you getting filled with guilt and shame and this trap that is laid down by shaitan to drive you to that? Because it thrives on shame and guilt, this addiction, because that shame and guilt causes a lot of unrest and discontentment, uneasiness, anxiety. So a person doesn't know what to do other than to go back to the addiction to get that temporary release again, to get that escape. Yeah. So it's very important to reach out, because on your own, you got the qareem, you got your nafs, yes, and then amongst the mankind, the waswas from the jinn kind and mankind. Remember, so you got the pornography industry, you got the bad da'wah that we get, the da'wah to shar we get when we walk out of our houses. Subhanallah. Went to the graveyard the other day. May Allah grant the Auntie Jannah, and someone passed away, on my parents' road. And we were at the graveyard, and one brother just mentioned that. He goes, we're getting reminded about the dunya night and day. We wake up, drop the kids to school, get to work, money, bills, this and that, and chasing the dunya. But it's very important for us to remind ourselves of the akhirah. And it was a beautiful reminder. It was an emotional place. We went to one of my friend's father's grave, subhanallah, and it really put things into perspective. So you have to reach out. Yeah, it's not a solo journey. You have to reach out and kind of deal with, as you said, it's in the brain. The addiction lives in the brain, and it's very complex. This addiction is very powerful, and I'm sure many of those who are suffering are aware. Again, the Prophet ﷺ said, this is the biggest fitna he has left behind for man. Subhanallah. So you need to reach out. You need to do some rigorous work and get that support network. Deal with individuals who know what they are doing and who have been in the trenches and can really help you. Secondly, I wanted to touch on is a daily routine. Yeah. A daily routine is a foundation of recovering from sexual addiction. That's what we've seen. A solid daily routine. The guys that are sober, have long-term sobriety, all of them will have solid daily routines. So that could include, obviously, in the morning, as soon as you wake up, connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making your azkar, maybe doing a bit of Quran. For some, it may be as soon as you wake up, because, relapses are connected to sleep a lot. So just before people sleep, or just after they wake up. So those are 2 points where you need to really change. There needs to be this fundamental change, radical change taking place in that routine, because that routine right now is driving the addiction. So some individuals I've dealt with, they'll have problems as soon as they wake up, they want to act out. So I say, as soon as you wake up, you get out of the bed and you call another brother. And then you go for a jog and you come out and you have a shower. That will be enough to get you out of that kind of train towards relapse, to distract your thought patterns. And connecting with Allah, doing different recovery tools throughout the day, talking to Allah. Yes, we pray our salah, alhamdulillah, we try to pray 5 times a day and go Jum'ah, but we want to go beyond that. Every Muslim, we should go beyond that. We should take example from the prophets and the Sahaba. We want to be connected to Allah throughout our day. There should not be a time in the day where we are not connecting with Allah. Because when we are connected to Allah, you will be disconnected from the haram and the things that sway you the other way, and you'll be disconnected from the addiction. And that's what we're seeing. This, that is the next thing I wanted to talk about, the real solution. But your daily routine needs to change. You see that electrical circuit I talk about, it's the addiction, and it's firing up the addiction. You need to cut it. You need to cut it from many different places. You need to disrupt it. And again, radical disruption. That's what it is. You see a lot of people come into recovery. I'm sure, Akhi, you've experienced this. People come into recovery and they think it's an overnight solution. They think recovery is a magic pill. Yeah. And no, because it's taken years and years of this to develop. And you need to be serious. You can't expect to come and get sober in a week or just recover. Yeah, for many, it takes years. Alhamdulillah, you get those individuals that they've been through a lot. They've been through a mess. They've been through the divorce, and they've seen the reality of the fawahish. Yeah? They've seen, and they're done with it. They're done with lust, and they're ready. So we'll give them that same solution, the same steps towards recovery. And recovery is very simple. Any organization is accountability and awareness and some counseling. Yeah, that's what you need. And you need a circle. So you have to be very serious. And what happens, a lot of youngsters, they struggle a lot more because they just maybe, I mean, there's different things. I don't want to generalize, but it may be that they just haven't gone through enough. The lust hasn't affected them in that way. They haven't lost their job. They haven't lost their marriage. They haven't lost their children. They haven't gone to prison for sexual offenses, but people who have gone through that, they're done. They know, they've seen the reality. They can see beyond the glorification of the porn industry. They can see beyond that. Yeah. So we need to be really serious with recovery, and the fundamental and the foundation is your daily routine. Again, throughout the day, calling people. Some individuals say they will call 10 people a day in initial recovery just to get past the withdrawal and that part where it's really hard. And then in the night, doing, again, recovery work and so on. And third thing I want to talk about is the real solution. And, they are different, because recovery, people think that it may be one thing. They come in counseling and think it's certain trauma that is driving me towards addiction. It's normally a mixture of things. It can't just be one thing. It's a mixture of things. Likewise, recovery is also a mixture. You need to work on it, cement all holes, cover all the tracks. So I know there's big movements with, subhanAllah, a lot of followers nowadays, and they concentrate a lot on sexual transmutation and dopamine substitution. And that's an important part. That's an important part that some recovery programs may be lacking in. And I wanted to, at the end, touch on that as well. But we need to look at the real solution. We need to go back to the basics of, our creator. Like you mentioned in the beginning, our creator knows best how the creation will feel happy and fulfilled and content. Yeah, it's like me having an iPhone and going to the local mobile shop and trying to get it fixed, compared to going to Apple. Yeah, Apple will know best how to fix it, and they will give me the manual how best to use the phone. Yeah, likewise, our creator has created us, and he's told us the solutions are there in the Quran. He is a shafi, he is the curer. Yeah, so he is a solution. If you see it, I mean, we talk about counseling and that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the best counsel in the Quran. Yeah. The example I give is, what happens is, a lot of people, again, going to that dopamine substitution, transmutation, a lot of people use this willpower way. And we also see seems to be, with a lot of people, with many people suffering from this addiction, there seems to be this barrier between them and Allah. There seems to be some roadblocks where there's this quote. Yeah, I'd like to mention this quote by a scholar. He mentioned that the Muslim is like a bird. Yeah, so the head of the bird is the love of Allah, and the two wings, one wing is the fear of Allah, and one wing is the hope of Allah. Everything needs to be balanced for that bird to fly. Yeah, if anything is missing, then it won't be able to fly. So, you can't have too much hope is what, Allah forgive me, I'm just going to go ahead and do my thing. I'm going to, sell alcohol. Allah forgive me. I'm going to commit zina. Allah forgive me. But then there's the other side. Too much fear, paralyzing fear, overwhelming fear, misplaced emphasis on fear. And we've seen that addicts, they have that wing of fear flying too high. This is a pattern we've seen. There is not enough hope. This is what we've seen. This is what I experienced. There is not enough connection, this love, this trust, this tawakkul with Allah. And it's always like, I'm an evil person. I'm doomed. I'm going to hell. Look what I'm doing. And we forget how mercy Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, how merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. We forget that Allah says, my mercy precedes my wrath. We forget that Allah says, "O my servants, those who have transgressed against themselves, do not despair of my mercy, for verily I forgive all sins." And the term some of the Mufassir describe when Allah says, those who are, first of all, He says, "Qul ya ibadi," my slave, you're my slave. He's talking about the transgressor, saying, my slave, Then he's saying those who have transgressed. And one Mufassir was explaining the Arabic. I'm not too well versed in Arabic. He said the word used for transgression is the one who has crossed all boundaries, gone beyond, above and beyond. Yeah. So he's not talking to the average Joe, because even this verse was revealed at the time when there was a tribe, and this tribe was like, they were robbers, and they were doing a lot of evil. And they came to the Prophet and they said, Prophet, you are claiming you are a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you know what we do? We are kind of gone beyond boundaries. Will Allah forgive us? And I think they left, and this verse was revealed for them, subhanAllah. So likewise, the scholar was saying that Allah is not talking to the huffaz, the ulama, the righteous, the shuhada. He's talking to, the people who have gone beyond boundaries. He's talking to the murderer. He's talking to, the people who have gone the other way, beyond limits. And then he says, verily, I forgive, do not despair of my mercy. And the scholar was mentioning that he said, do not, meaning it's such a strict way in fusha that, don't you dare, because that's what you see, a lot of brothers, sisters suffering from these things. They think that their sins are more powerful than Allah's mercy. SubhanAllah, there's no comparison, is there? No matter what you have done, no matter how far you have gone, it is not greater than Allah's mercy. Your sin is not greater than Allah's mercy. So what we've seen is people heal like this, because you see, when you're in that state of fear, it's paralyzing. You've acted out, you've done this lustful act, and okay, it's given you that temporary relief, yeah, for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour for the day. And then the shame and the guilt the next day, and this inner turmoil starts again, this inner conflict. I'm such an evil person, I'm bad, Allah's not going to forgive me. That's where you need to step in. And that's part of the addiction cycle. You see, subhanAllah, the inner addict is very clever, and he will keep people stuck in there, because they have to be stuck in there, because when they're feeling that pain, that shame, that guilt, they're in a state of restlessness and anxious, and they will turn again to their drug to give them that escape, to release that dopamine. Yeah, so that's what we've seen, like, even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us the story of Musa alayhi salam, when he was tempted, and the Prophet of Allah, and he said, he turned to Allah, Ya Allah, protect me. He turned to Allah, Prophet of Allah, and and mentioned something to the like that, if you don't protect me, I may be from amongst the transgressors. Yeah, something similar to that in the verse. And what happened? He took the action. He ran away from Zulaykha, the wife of the king. And the king opened the door for him. SubhanAllah. Allah made the king open the door for him. Yeah, Allah opened doors when all doors were shut. And you see, that's why we say willpower will only take you so far. Only Allah Azza wa Jal, only our Creator will be able to cure us and heal our hearts and souls. And that's what we pay a heavy emphasis on. And I'm sure you guys do that as well, SubhanAllah. It's clearly seen from your work. So that is what people need to work on, study these subjects. Yeah,
absolutely. I think there's so many parallels to the work that you've mentioned, and the hubbullah, or love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is something which a lot of people who come to us battle with, because they're like, well, why would Allah love me? I'm so far gone. And how is it that, and they've given up on themselves, because they've said, and I think the shaitan is so strong that it makes them think that there's no hope, as in there is nothing, you're too far gone, as you were mentioning. And it's so true in that even the CBT, which is the secular model, is only looking at the behavioral part. And like you were saying, it's by will therapy. So you may change the behavior, but full recovery is actually changing the desire. So if you desire Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than the pornography, that's what it comes down to, doesn't it? And it's about increasing that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that actually my interaction with Allah, or my day to day, when I'm speaking to him, or when I'm in a conversation with him, or when I'm remembering him, and I'm in Tawheed, I'm practicing taqwa in my life, then actually that relationship is so beautiful. It's so lovely. It's something which I wouldn't give up for the world. And it's when it's that desire, then that desire isn't stronger than the other desire to, to act out. Because at the end of the day, as we were mentioning, if we're unmarried, then it's harder, because then it's a legitimate desire which isn't being fulfilled. And it's unfortunate that Muslims find themselves in that circumstance and then they're acting out. But for an addict, when they are completely, as you say, their brain is short-circuited to that dopamine rush which they're getting each time, for them, putting the behavior on one side and saying, how do I get my heart to go and experience the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because once the heart can truly taste the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives our heart the power and the strength that the desire changes, and then we say that, and in recovery, as you were saying, recovery isn't a straight line, because our desires every day, our desires are going up and down. Our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going up and down every single day. And it's only when we can maintain that taqwa, maintain that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which gives us so much joy and so much pleasure, so much itminan, that it then, anything else becomes secondary. So it's interesting that we may have, people who struggle with same-sex lust, people struggling with pornography. The solution isn't just to stop what they're doing, it's to go back to what they were created for. And as you said, our creator knows the best. So when he's created us, he said, this is why I've created you. I've created you so that you worship me. It's not that he needs worship, it's that he's created us in such a way that we need him. He's created us in a way that we actually need him. And if we think that we don't need him, and if we don't have that understanding, and that's why I was listening to this lecture on atheism the other day, and the most arrogant of things you could say is that he doesn't exist. When you have no knowledge of it, you can't, you can be agnostic, you can say, okay, there may be a God, there might not be a God, but to say definitely and be very assured that a creator doesn't exist is a very arrogant statement. And this is unfortunately, when we think, okay, there is no creator, or the secularization of what we're living in, when there's no creator, well, then there's no rules, there's no nothing, and and then you're completely lost. And that's why the fahisha is everywhere, because they have no compass, they have no rules, they have no anything. There is no direction in their lives. And as Muslims, we are blessed by Islam, we are blessed by the knowledge, we're blessed by that one-to-one relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's about it's about aligning that desire, because at the end of the day, they're both desires. The desire is wanting to act out, and one of the desires is saying, I want to be true to Allah, I want to true be my family, other people around me. I want to be sincerity, I want to have ikhlas in my life, in what I'm doing. And it's we're at constant battle between our nafs, you know, in that what the nafs is wanting, as opposed to what's good for us, what would actually be good for us in the nafs in the longer term. So it's about short term versus long term. You know, as you mentioned, you might have that 15 minutes a day of pleasure, and then the psychological baggage that comes afterwards in terms of the shame and the guilt, and and you have strengthened that neural pathway again for that is a lot more. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as you say, is beautiful that He says, you know what, don't even create that pathway in the first place. Don't have that second look, in that when you don't, it's like, for a lot of us, Allah has given us immunity for alcohol. We've never tasted it. We don't know what it's like. So when people talk about alcohol addiction, we're like, what is this? Because subhanallah, for a lot of us, Allah has protected us from that. And if it is harder to have seen it and then go back for pornography, because once you've seen it, once your mind, as you were saying, has a picture of it, that will stay for life. It may be only a few seconds of that, but it's something that will stay for life. And it's so important what you've said, is that you're not too far gone. So even if you're someone who is watching it compulsively, watching it every day, watching it, doing it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a shafi, is the healer. So He will change our bodies, He will change our minds. He has the power to come in and change our desires. Because at the end of the day, the secular model doesn't realize, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't realize the power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, and that it maybe the pornography was a means for us to come to Him. Maybe we needed to reach a place where we were so arrogant that we were living our lives without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then maybe the pornography was a way for us to do some deeper self-introspection, and then say, actually, you know what, I can't do this alone. And I think the moment we say we can't do this alone, we realize we need support, we need this. And that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes into our lives, because usually, as men, we tend to be very, sure that, okay, I know what I'm doing, I know, I'm going this way. And until something like that shakes us, then we're like, you know what, actually, I need my brothers, I need the support, and I need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to come into my life.
No, it's so true, akhi. Because sometimes when everything is going smooth, we forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's only, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works in mysterious ways. And then when we go through trials and difficulties, is when we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I remember a brother, he mentioned to me that he said, everything in my life is totally fine. Alhamdulillah, finances, family, job, everything. This is my only fitna. And I think we were talking on this topic as well, because I've had other brothers say that it's the best thing that's ever happened to them, because through this, they found a new relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and, a deeper, meaning, that soul searching that took place, and that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise, this brother said that if I didn't have this difficulty, then I would have felt like I don't need Allah. And, I probably would have been somewhere far away. And through this addiction, through this pain, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought me closer to Him. And that's what individuals say, Going back to another thing you said, maintaining the fitrah of our kids. Yes, some people say that, oh, you can't protect them, they're going to come across it. But we can't have that mindset. We can do as much as we can. Yes, they will come across it. Maybe they will. I mean, they're going to go through puberty, but you got to reduce the impact as much as you can. We can't just say, okay, we give up. Because we put up one video with Ustadh Gabriel. He's been talking about educating kids about masturbation, pornography, and there was a brother who mentioned that how can you talk like this to your kids, and what benefit will this do? They're going to come across it, but we can't have that mindset. Any little change we can bring as Muslims in our ummah, help the community, we should do that. And the other thing you mentioned about looking for Allah, and that's what I've heard that there is mentioned that addiction is a misinterpreted yearning for God. So the soul is yearning for its relationship, the relationship with its creator. And you would see a lot of Muslim youngsters when they come from Jahil backgrounds, drinking, drug dealing, and alhamdulillah, it's a lot of the youth are coming to Islam. Yeah, within the last decade, there's been this huge increase, which is beautiful. And a lot of them come from these backgrounds of zina, alcohol, clubbing, and so on. But they come to Islam and everything's gone, right? Because it's that God hole that they were trying to fill. Yeah, we're trying to fill that God hole with all different means. And then a lot of non-Muslims, alhamdulillah, they come to Islam and they become from amongst the best of Muslims because, they taste that sweetness of Iman and they taste that connection with Allah, and that hole that can only be filled through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is filled. And then what I think, some of them, again, we've seen patterns because a lot of practicing individuals come with pornography. So I think they need to now go a step further. They may have left those lifestyle and they developed that relationship with Allah. But what happens over time? So we've had some patterns where brothers, when they started practicing, they went sober 6 months, 2 months, 1 year, 2 years, one brother. And they got sober. I'm not 2 years, but yeah, one brother was 1 year. But what I'm trying to say, they went sober. Why? Because they found this, they've all those things that we talked about. They've changed their daily routine. They've changed the bad company to good company. They've come into a good environment. They've, disrupted that electrical circuit. And the main thing is they've connected with their creator. Yeah. And now they're following the commands of their creator and they're having that peace in their lives. And then what happens over time as we practice, maybe 5 years down the line, so a lot of them would relapse. So what happens, I think sometimes, praying and all these things become very ritualized. So we'll start going, initial years, we'll go to the masjid and we're feeling that khushu, Allahu Akbar, and that's it, we're in the, clouds. Over time, it becomes habitual and ritualized. So that's why I say that you need to, again, talking about meditation as well, be present, presence, awareness, be present, go back to what was making you happy. You see, a lot of people struggling with mental health issues, it's just adult life has taken over and, a combination of things. And sometimes you just need to reconnect with the happy self, the inner child within. Go back and do the things you used to enjoy as a kid. Going cycling in the park or getting connected with it. I tell a lot of brothers, go to your local park. I want you to take walks, get connected with your local park, get back into your cricket. Everything you were doing in Jahiliyyah, minus the haram aspect. Enjoy life. And this is another pattern. You see a lot of, not everyone, but a lot of individuals with this addiction, practicing Muslims, they will have maybe a lack of social circles. So there'll be a lot of them, subhanAllah, isolated. So we have some brothers, abroad and that, and they haven't got a masjid next to them. So they're practicing and everything. And maybe over the years, it's become a bit more ritualized and they're not that involved. And they're isolated. And then this fitna, this fitna, powerful fitna is coming on the screens online. The world is online now. And then they, slowly becomes an addiction. So every time, the problem comes, they're seeing that as, this is how I feel good. So we say, start to enjoy your life. Write down things. I tell some individuals, write down, plan this year of recovery, plan a holiday, plan camping with your friends, plan you're going to play a bit of cricket, football, anything halal, plan gym. And we're coming on to the topic, which I wanted to mention before. I think time's kind of running out. About dopamine substitution is an important part. The solution is with Allah. You need to get counseling. Yeah, even counseling, you need to explore the mind. Yeah, whether it's CBT work, cognitive behavioral therapy, NLP, neuro linguistic programming, or just some meditation sometimes. Because things like perfectionism, a lot of addicts will be suffering from perfectionism. So they want everything to go according to their will, coming back to the will, yeah, not Allah's will, my will. So it's like, imagine like two lines, yeah, one straight line and one zigzag line at the bottom. So perfectionists see the world as a straight line, which doesn't exist, is a fake world. And the zigzag line at the bottom is reality. That's our life. Life is going to have ups and downs. So you cannot try to make that zigzag line straight. There's going to be a lot of conflict. It's insanity. Yeah, you live life and accept what is. Other things they might have, in this conditioning, a heightened sense of entitlement. So this directly relates to addiction. So feeling entitled in your day-to-day life, and this may have been developed through your relationship with your parents or your peers, and maybe they contributed to building that, building our egos or something like that, and then it affects us up and in later on in life. So having that sense of entitlement, like, I need to have the perfect meal. Yeah, it needs to hit the spot, as they say. I need to have perfect sleep. I need to have a perfect work relationship. I need to have perfect finances. Married individuals, I need to have perfect intimacy with my wife. And this has been a game changer. You see, when people let go, because this is an expectation. In life, we should not have expectations, yeah, or we should reduce them as much as possible, because when we have expectations, there's much more room for disappointment. Because a lot of times those expectations are not going to get met. If we expect anything, we expect it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not the creation. So, if we expect every meal is going to hit the spot, every intimacy, moment of intimacy with our spouses is going to be great, and, it's going to be amazing. No, and this has been a game changer for individuals, because they had this entitlement, and that's developed through pornography addiction as well, or, zina, whatever. And they feel like their wife is now going to live up to that. How can a wife live up to this chemical imbalance? Yeah. So, but when they let go of that sense of entitlement and surrender to Allah, then it's been a game changer, where it's like they're content now. Whether it's gone good or bad, they're content. And it's actually, the sexual life has actually gone much better, because they've let go of the expectations. They're going into that intimacy, making azkar, the dua, and connecting with Allah. Ya Allah, hand it over to you, I surrender. You're getting reward for it at the end of the day. Once you do it in a halal way, it's sadaqah, right? You're getting reward for that. And even food, because if you have that mindset that I need to make sure this meal, I have this gourmet burger with chips and a Pepsi, it needs to feel 100%. Now, what's happening? If that doesn't, that day, maybe you had a coffee earlier on, it's just not going to fulfill you in that way. And then what happens? Then I need to have another energy drink. I need to have another Red Bull. I'm not feeling good. And then it's like the brain wants more and more and more. And then someone suffering from porn addiction, man, I'm not feeling that high. And then, and this is on a subconscious level. Yeah, all of this, addiction is subconscious, isn't it? So then they're going bang before they know it. And then a lot of people say that I was just on YouTube or that. You see, inner addict knows exactly what it's doing. You may think you're on YouTube without filters, without restrictions. You're not. Sobriety is no longer priority. Yeah, we have the slogan, sobriety is priority. So what's happening now is not priority. You're on YouTube, and one thing leads to the other. And, what do you expect? This is what's going to happen. And so the part of sexual transmutation and dopamine substitution, that's important as well. And lately I've been, because youngsters struggle a lot, so I've been implementing or telling a lot of individuals to get involved in sports. Even things that you are doing, learning Arabic, yeah, that rewires the brain. Reading is known to rewire the brain. And things that I mentioned about enjoying your life, going out, these things will be a form of dopamine substitution. Even recovery work is going to release dopamine, hitting targets releases dopamine. But I've been encouraging the youngsters a lot to go to gym. Yeah, so it depends where your fitness levels are. If you've never gone to the gym, start off by running. Yeah, the runner's high is something amazing. Once you start off small, run the road, then go 2 roads around the block, Because you can't just take away this addiction, you can't just take away this lust addiction and not give the brain something else. You know, it's like taking a toy for a child. He's going to scream, go crazy. You need to replace the toy. Yeah. And that's why it's important to replace the dopamine now. The dopamine that is lacking through the pornography and acting out, you need to replace it with running. You need to replace it with gym. And the guys who are now in gym, I would encourage them to go a step further, get into boxing. Yeah. You know, the dopamine release from boxing sessions, it's very like high, or the endorphins that are released. Jiu-jitsu is a sport a lot of youngsters are getting into recently from all different backgrounds, alhamdulillah, whatever level of fitness, because it's a very interesting sport. It's very technical, user. And I was speaking to one brother lately, and he said, I'm doing, you know, this jiu-jitsu, and he goes, recently started it, and he goes, now I'm fantasizing about my next sparring session, what moves I'm gonna do. I'm busy on YouTube searching, you know, techniques. And he goes, it's so much better than fantasizing about porn. So, you know, they need to get busy with other things. We need to give them other things. You can't just take away the pornography. So yeah, inshallah, I'll just basically, this is what the brief is, that, you know, get involved, reach out, go to a counselor, preferably a Muslim counselor, coach, an organization, and also, you know, look at your daily routine and know that the solution is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Work in your relationship with Allah. Study these subjects, study tawakkul, study tawheed, and study husn al-dhan, you know, thinking good of Allah, bettering our relationship with Allah. Start to watch videos about this and so on. And also with the coaching counseling, you probably do that CBT work, and work on this as well, you know, work on all parts of it. So if you're gonna get into recovery, make sure you are transmuting that energy, and you know, you are replacing that dopamine. But remember the main solution. Don't just go with those movements that just advise this. And some of them be like, you get superpowers, you become Superman once you are like, you know, 90 days. No, we know the solution is in the Quran and the Sunnah, and the solution is with our Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our creator. And I think I'll leave it there if that's okay.
Yeah, no, very beautiful. And you know, like, I think you started off talking about escapism, how it's an escapism. And sometimes, you know, in our circles, I ask people, so, you know, why, so you went there, you went to this haram place, why did you go there? And they said, I was looking for excitement, you know, and that's exactly the dopamine substitution. I was looking for something which would kind of give some excitement. And I said, why not, you know, other things which will bring that? You know, there's so many halal fun, like my sister was saying, why don't we go skydiving? And I was thinking, wow, you know, think about the dopamine rush you would get from skydiving. There's so many things we could be doing. Or like, you know, everybody has a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a purpose, you know. So if you find your purpose in life, you'll spend hours and hours on that hobby, and it won't seem like anything, you know, because Allah's gifted you with that interest. And you can use that to help the society, help contribute, you know, like the work you're doing. For example, you know, you must have had really good coaching skills as a youth worker or leader, that Allah is now saying, let's use that for the benefit of the community. So all of us have a gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or a skill that if we were to discover, which would completely, that would be our addiction, you know, in a sense. And we always need something, which is like you're saying, planning a holiday, halal fun, you know, having that concept of, okay, what can I be doing that I'm happy and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happy as well in that, you know. And that's, you know, as we said, is all about having Allah at the center of our lives, and that whatever we're doing, we're conscious of that, and we're not denying our legitimate desires of experiencing something new, doing something different, doing something risky, because as men we like risk, don't we? We
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
taking, doing new things,
Really.
having new experiences.
Yeah.
And it's just about, there's so, there's a scholar who was saying there's so much which is halal.
Yeah.
There's so much we can do, and the haram is only a small part, which God
Yeah.
has said this isn't good for you. And it's about exploring that. And I think once we start exploring, there's so much we could be doing, which is beneficial. um,
Like just to add to that, when I always tried to practice when I was younger, and I wouldn't last, but I did have this idea that once you start practicing, you become this saint and you can't enjoy life anymore.
yeah.
And there was about 10, 11 years ago when my sister got married, and my brother-in-law is a very practicing individual from East London, and he was something I needed. He was like a role model to look up to, and he's very practicing. But I saw he enjoyed himself so much, always happy, such a positive vibe, kept me around his boys. We'd go out to eat, and at that time he was working for an Islamic company, and we're going doing events throughout the UK, different events, and it was so much fun. And subhanallah, he was, obviously there were a few figures involved, yeah, like it is always, and that's where, subhanallah, he was like a coach, right? He was like a counselor in a way. And then I remember I let go of my beard, and my sister said it looks really nice, and then I just left it there about 10, 11 years ago. But what I saw that is, you can enjoy yourself, like the deen is beautiful, and I saw that in my brother-in-law, having a laugh, enjoying himself, going out, going on holidays. And this is where it is. A lot of individuals stuck in jahiliyyah or even these addictions, they forget to enjoy themselves. That the deen is beautiful. We can do anything. Like you said, subhanAllah, haram is a small part, but let's do all the halal things and really start to enjoy life and live life.
Alhamdulillah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Now, hopefully we can move to some Q&A. So I know a lot of you have been putting some questions. So there's the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. This is for people on Zoom. So we have some questions here. You can also like the questions, for example, if you want some of them to be answered first. And so on. So also, please do note that this is live. So if you do want to ask a question and you don't want your identity, then you can ask anonymously. There's that feature which is available. Also, if you would like to speak and ask a question, then you can raise your hand and you can ask a question to the guest. So that is possible as well. So if you're interested in asking, then there's that raise hand facility. But just be aware that your name will be shown if you chose to raise your hand and ask the question. So just so that we are clear in terms of that. So I'm just looking at some of the questions here. So I think there's a question saying the person's not sure whether you can refer to NHS for pornography addiction.
Is that for me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
no, I didn't say pornography addiction, just general CBT. You should be able to get referred to talking therapies, where you can hopefully work with a cognitive behavioral therapist and just get general therapy. Yeah. I don't think there's anything in place for pornography.
yeah, there's IAPT, which is available for everyone. And, you can have 6 sessions, which they do for CBT. And pornography is something which is legitimate, unlike what we struggle with, same-sex lust is not something you can unfortunately go to them for. But pornography is actually something they will help you with.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be understanding and
yes. So we've got a sister. She has written, is there any therapeutic protocol based on Islamic psychology perspective to deal with porn addiction?
These are for me.
Yes.
So I think the brothers here, you may be doing it, right? Do you do like a...
We do, yeah. So we have obviously we have a list of counselors who we do, and we had Ustadh Gabriel as well, who does who has a concept of positive psychology, which he has in terms of Islam. And there is a growing number of Muslim therapists now, alhamdulillah, in the UK, which we can refer to. So if the person is interested, they can email us, and we do have a list. There's a list. The list on our website is more attuned to people struggling with same-sex attraction. But even if you're watching this today, if you email us, you can go to strongsupport.co.uk/contact, and you can reach us in any way, and we can help you to find Muslim therapists, people who are doing Islamic counseling, and we can definitely refer you for that. So thank you. So the next question is, what if someone doesn't want to involve any other person in the process or recovery? One of my clients doesn't want to share with anybody that he is doing porn, so it's difficult to ask someone else to help monitor. So I'm guessing what she's saying here is they don't want someone else to know. I'm thinking this is what the question is asking.
They don't want to join a recovery program. And we kind of touched on this in the beginning. It's not a solo journey. We've worked with many individuals, and it's very hard to recover alone. I guess you can carry on trying to coach him, and inshallah he recovers. But if he doesn't, then he's going to have to eventually reach out, to a support group and get help, inshallah.
And I think, as you're saying, there needs to be a push from both sides, right? So it can't just be a push from you as the therapist,
exactly,
or as the coach. It needs to be, people who are committed, people who will, and I'm sure you probably have this before when you've done it for free, and people they're half-hearted in the recovery, and that's why you've got the commitment there, the financial commitment that, okay. And subhanallah, I mean, as I was saying it before, people spend money on everything, and when it comes to their health, when it comes to their akhirah, when it comes to their iman, they're not investing in it, and they're not seeing the support which is available. And it's so important to get support from your faith perspective, because it's obviously other people will be giving advice, but people who understand the community, they understand the demographic, they understand our belief and values, is really, really has huge benefit to people. So I think that's very important.
Next one's funny.
Yes.
Come, brother. Only brothers though, yeah. No sisters.
Yes. It's
I think it might be. I think it might be someone from our team. Yeah.
Mashallah, yes. So we, just for people who to know, the question is saying, I want to have a bear hug from Ustadh Abu Musa virtually now.
I think that's Adil. That's brother Adil.
And there you go. So subhanallah. So, okay, next question is, in my personal experience, I thought I wasn't a porn addict, managed to keep sober for 1 year and 8 months, then relapse. For me, it's mostly connected with this intoxicating sense of sexual freedom, to the extent that the very thought of it makes me drunk. Sakratal in lust. There's a verse in the Quran that says that these people are drunk in lust. Regards to this, what is your opinion of adapting Sexaholic Anonymous principles into the recovery process?
So I know Sexaholics Anonymous do great work. Yeah, I've read their stuff and that very active. I know Muslims are part of the group as well, or Muslims go, but that's what I need to know if you're Muslim or non-Muslim, because with Muslims it could be a bit of an issue because they have this theme of higher power, and anything could be a higher power. You know, the group could be a higher power, the sun could be a higher power, a table could be a higher power. You know, these kind of things I've heard and read, and that is where it could get a bit dangerous. You know, so I could, like, obviously our aqidah is very important in Islam, yeah, to Tawheed, to believe in Allah's oneness, and you know how He is, He's a creator, and so on. So it's very dangerous being a Muslim. You need to be very well grounded, I guess. But that's all I think I could mention on that. I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't be able to advise to go or not to go, but that's the kind of warning I can give you, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. You want support, you know, especially if you have programs like yours, which is tailored for Muslims. You want to prefer those. It may be that you may take principles from 12-step recovery groups, and they may help you. And you know, the Prophet says, take knowledge from anyone, you know, in the sense that anyone that might be coming, but knowing that the best answers are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, and so having an Islamic perspective which will help you. So
anything that agrees with the Quran and Sunnah you take, and anything that disagrees then you have to leave and be careful of, inshallah.
Rahman, thank you. Not a question, just wanted to say thanks for this webinar. It came at the right time and was greatly needed. May Allah reward you for it immensely.
Ameen, ameen, Allahumma ameen.
Another question. I am from Nigeria, where such therapy is not readily available. Please, is there any online platform which I could get help? So of course we have My Tazkiyah, so you can go on the website, and I believe that you have coaches as well there for people.
His coaches there, yeah.
So so if the brother contacts or me, or even if you the links are on our website for My Tazkiyah, you can inshallah make use. Can you write down the web address? Okay, so I'll just put that now in the chat so you can see. So the list that we have is on our website. If you go strongsupport.co.uk/counseling, or even if you go on our main page and you scroll down and you press counseling, you will see a list which includes the Ustadh Gabriel and includes other list for people for same-sex attraction mostly, but we cover pornography. Pornography is, you know, one of the main things we do in our work. So there is a huge crossover. In terms of other bodies, there's MCAPN, which is the Muslim Counselors Professional Network. You can go on their website and have a list of Muslim psychotherapists which are there. So again, you know, reach out to them. If you still require more, then, you know, kind of see that, do answer that. I know this same person's asked about Islamic perspective to do a research. Again, you know, you can be sure to contact myself if you want, if you know, kind of, if we can help you in that research in any way, then we'd be happy to do so. So thank you. So there's a asking about the 12-step question from Egypt, someone joining from Egypt, and asking, do you recommend the 12-step program? I'm sure you must have heard of it in your work.
Yeah, I think we kind of answered that question with the other brother as well, isn't it? Like if you're just online and we can take, like brother said, we can take good from anyone and everyone. As long as it's in line with our deen, then you take from it, and you leave anything that is in disagreement with the Quran and the Sunnah, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
So there is opportunity for us questions more, but I would like to kind of ask, when you started this work, right? And there's a lot of stigma in the Muslim community on this topic, and alhamdulillah, I watched your podcast with Freshly Grounded, and may Allah bless them that they had the courage to address the topic in that capacity. And you've been working on this for a while now. And I remember you said that this topic is not, there'll be people, da'is, there'll be people, scholars, there'll be everybody who has that, because at the end of the day, human desire is human. Anybody can struggle with it. And it was one of the things that kind of got me thinking in the work that we're doing. There's a lot of shame in the Muslim community to come and say, so subhanAllah, I saw a lot of brave people on the website saying, this is my journey with pornography addiction. This is where I am. This is how I've recovered. And actually their stories are huge, because Muslims, our community is such that we really struggle to talk about these topics, even though everybody is, struggling. And it is something which is, in your youth work, in your experience, you were like saying, subhanAllah, there's an epidemic of this. Everybody's struggling, and yet no one is raising their voice. No one is speaking about it. And no one is doing anything. How have you seen, do you think we've still got a while to go in addressing topics like this? And it's shameful that it's sensitive, because it's like, well, we've had the concept of haya and modesty and doing this have always been in Islam. So why is it when something is a multi-billion-dollar industry and it has so much power, that it's a sensitive topic to discuss, when it's not prevalent, it's in your face, these things, and yet there is a hesitation from the community to address the topic, not get help for it, address the topic in it. So just wanted to kind of see, because you've been doing this work for a while, and seeing if you've seen a change in the community in terms of this attitude, or what your experience has been.
No, I think there's been a big change in the recent years, alhamdulillah. A lot of people are talking about it. A lot of Muslims are talking about it, which means they're heading in the right direction. I know you got that brother from Away Academy next. You've got
yes
now.
So thank you
Ibrahim.
for reminding. Wael Ibrahim, yes. So he's our next person for our webinar. Because what happened, I discussed the great work that you're doing to our volunteers, and they said, "Oh, Brother Ali, you need to get this person in." And I was like, "Okay, alhamdulillah." So yeah.
So I had a podcast with one brother from India, and he said he had Wael Ibrahim as well, and he mentioned that when Wael Ibrahim spoke in one country, I don't know, South Africa or something, someone pulled a gun out. It's like a kind of Islamic lecture.
No
someone pulled a gun out because they were so, like, they didn't like what he was talking about. I was shocked. But I said, alhamdulillah, we've not had no guns pulled out at us, alhamdulillah.
Look at the ignorance, isn't it?
It's crazy.
at another level.
It's like, what's going on there? But we've actually had a lot of support, I think, because of the suffering, because of it being this epidemic, and so many Muslims struggling with it, that they're probably grateful for someone speaking about it. And alhamdulillah, like you said, Akhi, the Prophet ﷺ, told us how to clean ourselves after going to the toilet. And he told us, Aisha, telling us about intimacy, with the Prophet, and these things, how to conduct our relationships, sexual relationships, how to eat. He never left anything, right? And it is organization like yours, like ours, may Allah accept our efforts, like scholars, right? Or, that du'at, like Ustadh Gabriel al-Romani, and many individuals that are putting themselves out there, like the brothers that are freshly grounded, these individuals who are being brave and talking about it. And only by talking about it, people are reaching out and getting the help. And I think we just have to, may Allah bless this work and help the ummah. And we just have to keep working on this, keep consistent, inshallah.
How can people donate to your work, or how can they support what you're doing?
So, like I've said in previous podcasts, if there's coaches who want to coach with us, counselors, alhamdulillah, we've got some therapists, psychotherapists. If anyone's interested, you can email. Anyone wants to support in any way, we want to doing a workshop in a masjid, and we want to be more involved with the masajid, with the Muslim communities up and down the country, to try to help Muslim figures to be able to help the Muslims in the community with this topic, what they can do if youngsters come to them with this problem. And if there's any help that you want to help us in any way, just you can email us. The email address is on the website. And yeah, we have the donation page as well. So right now what we have in place is you can sponsor individuals. So whatever you donate, it will go to sponsor someone for coaching or monthly membership, inshallah. Yeah. And it's an amana, we do our best. May Allah allow us to fulfill this duty, fulfill the rights of this work. And we do try to take it very seriously, every donation that we get. Alhamdulillah, the brothers are doing great work to make sure it's all distributed and done efficiently.
Alhamdulillah, from strong support from our members, from our team, we want to extend du'as and a lot of thanks for the brilliant work that you're doing, for being brave. It requires a lot of courage to do this work. And with the atmosphere, like you said, that example in India, which is there when you're doing this type of work. And I think this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's work, and we know that the Prophet's work wasn't easy, and how he was treated when he was delivering his message. And you are continuing the work for that. From the strong support team, we hope that we can help you. If there's anything that we can do to support your cause, please let us know. And
likewise, inshallah.
And thank you for this service, inshallah. Inshallah, we can end with dua, if that's okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbina alayka tawakkalna wa alayka anabna wa alayka al-masir. O Lord, upon you we rely, upon you we turn, and to you is the destination. Thank you so much, Ustadh Abu Musa, for joining us. We thank you all, the team, My Tazkiyah team, for this service. Inshallah, as the Ustadh has mentioned, we are blessed to have Brother Wael from Australia next week, who will be joining us to continue this important topic for people. And it will be on Zoom as well. So inshallah, we see you then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.